He built this section. He built from where the Colossus is to the front.
Aha.
He added this section on.
Right.
This section that changed, you notice the angle of the main access line.
Now, beyond these colossus, we see these long, tall columns.
Hypostyle hall, the hall of columns.
What is that? What went on in there?
That's the aisle to go through.
Just the passageway.
The passageway.
What was the relationship between the priest and the pharaoh?
The priest was, the chief priest was the advisor of the pharaoh, and the priests were under the domination of the chief priest, not the pharaoh. They related to the chief priest.
So these priests had a lot of power.
Yeah, they were the people of knowledge. They advised the aristocrat or the pharaonic system. They were the head of the educational system, which the Greeks call the mystery system.
Now again, I see this passageway begins to ascend, which means we're headed towards the Holy of Holies.
Yes, in a sense, that is true in its total sense. However, this particular chamber doesn't move you directly into the Holy of Holies.
No, not yet. No, but I can see up ahead.
Yes, you go into the colonnade, the court of colonnades, the court of the priests, where the priests assemble those in training, and they would walk around these colonnades. You see columns on three sides, double columns, where there's a walk. It's called the colonnade of the priests.
Now these columns are fluted.
These are fluted papyrus column, as you see in front of you. Yes. This is the Holy of Holies. When the early Christians came in and occupied this, they painted scenes from the Christian religion. Look at on the wall. Some of them are still remaining. You can see some of the scenes.
But I can see some of the scenes, yes.
Right. On all over. They painted this also.
And they did it over the original?
Oh, yes. Yes.
I see.
You could see some of it is gone now, and they painted over the originals. When we start to enter here, you see certain quote-unquote Gothic arches where the early Christian used. They took, look at that. Look at that piece of column where it's upside down. Look at the foot, the legs. They didn't worry even how they put it. That's upside down. They used the stone from another temple.
What about this, this concave entranceway here? Who built that?
That was done during the Roman time. They tried to make the imitation of what the Romans had developed by this time. And they put that there.
What the Africans had developed by this time?
But what the Africans had developed, they added to it.
I see.
When we left the Luxor Temple, Dr. Ben and I walked down a long avenue of sphinxes with ram's heads that once connected the Luxor Temple to the awesome temple of Karnak. So huge and beautiful, it's difficult to describe.
It is a temple that started way back in the 12th dynasty.
Under which pharaoh?
They are not certain. However, it was resumed. Work was resumed on it in the 18th dynasty by Amenhotep III.
Okay, now this is the main entrance, and these are the figures of
Amun-Ra.
In the form of a ram's
head, a lion body. Standing between the two paws is God Amun-Re.
And this is the main entrance, my God.
It's the main pylon. As you notice, these stone, the pylon, this thing was even touched good. Because you see the rough stone, see? There was rough stone all over, see? Now, this is done this side more than that side. But even so, there's hardly any work done comparatively because they had to smooth out this temple here. And
why?
Because the work, you place the stone in place first, then you do the finished work.
And they never got to do that?
They never got to do it.
Okay.
I mean, it'll take another century for them to finish this temple.
This is one huge temple.
Yes, it's the largest worship temple in the entire world. You can take St. Patrick's Cathedral, St. John the Divine, both in New York. You could take the Canterbury Cathedral. You could take the St. Peter's Cathedral in Rome. All of them and put them together and run almost the Indy 500 and still get room. See, look, as far as your eye can see.
Now, what is this? This is the first courtyard.
This is the first courtyard. That was the mud ramp that as you
carried the rocks up to
as you go up, you lengthen the ramp. And you can build, you carry up the rocks up there.
Could it be then that this is the same way the pyramids were made?
Exactly. The construction to build very high, they did it by ramps. You keep the same angle, so as you go higher, you lengthen the ramp. That you keep the same angle.
Okay, now let's talk about some of these figures. There's a huge column here. What is that?
These columns were built by Tihaka, the pharaoh that came here from Ethiopia, one of the Ethiopian pharaohs.
I see. Now, guarding the entranceway, there are two statues, and they are they represent death.
This one represents life.
Life.
That one represents death.
Of which person?
Ramesses II.
Ah, there he is again.
Yes, right.
All right. And then there, of course, is the ram's head with the lion's
ram's head
all the way around.
Same as the ram's head you saw outside.
And this is an anteroom.
No, that's the temple of God Amun, the specific temple. See, the whole thing is the great northern temple of Amun. But that particular one is the temple, the specific temple of Amun himself.
So this temple is huge, but it is a conglomeration of many temples.
Right.
All right, now when we leave this enormous courtyard and walk down here, what are we going to see?
Well, we go into the Hypostyle Hall. You're going to see 134 columns, 50 feet tall each, and about 7 to 8 feet in diameter.
God.
All stone. You're going to see all kinds of carvings in it, but in particular here, Gil, right up there you see God Min that I spoke to you about.
Yes.
Here is it. And on every one of these 134 columns, you'll be looking at God Min. Everywhere, the god of fertility. And elsewhere, he dominates this because Ramesses II, though he followed many, he followed Akhenaten father. Akhenaten father was the first in the 18th dynasty to continue this temple.
These columns supported a ceiling. This was enclosed at one time.
Yes. If you will notice, there is a low ceiling and there is a high ceiling.
Yes.
At that section was the low ceiling, and you would notice, right looking between these two columns, you would see a kind of grid pattern going from the low column on top. That you see the column here,
yes, yes.
The beam across.
Yes, yes.
Then you see built up is the grid pattern to the higher column. That allow you to get light in at the side. And both there were roofs. There was the low roof and the high roof.
And there's some of the original colors.
Oh yes, and you would see the original columns under that beam. And you should see some of the original color under this beam. At least a little piece there. There is it, see?
Yeah.
We're holding this. And then you see original color under that beam over there also at the high
Tell
roof.
me something. Why do some columns end when scoop out like a flower and then some are straight up?
Because some of the work wasn't finished. And this is the papyrus form column. You got to, because this is in the south. The column, the capitals of the column are made like a lotus flower. When you go to the north, the capitals of the column are made like papyrus, unless they got what they call the mix capital, where they integrate both papyrus and lotus or other design.
And you know what's also astounding is how well laid out these columns are.
Oh yes. If you went
Look at that line there. It's perfect.
Yes, but if you went in the center here, you would notice that if you went in the center here, you would notice, Gil, if you went in the center here, you would notice a complete, from the end of the building to the other end of the building,
Right down there.
there's a straight through.
Perfectly aligned.
Just as this one, it forms somewhat of a cross.
Yes.
You go straight down through the entire temple. That would be west to east, or you go down from north to south, the entire temple.
Amazing. Just amazing. This is about 6 stories tall.
Well, 50 feet, 5 feet for 10 foot is a floor. From floor to floor is 10 feet, and that's one floor. You got 50 feet, that's 5 floors.
5 floors. 5 stories.
5 stories.
No mortar.
No mortar. If you notice there's a good example of the original column, the face there. There's no mortar. The joints are perfectly as if they were sanded.
When we were at the Ramesseum, we were looking at one of the bases.
Yes.
And there was a little hole.
A key.
And that's a key.
A key.
And that was used to anchor.
That was to anchor the stone. Just in the event of hurricane, earthquake, that if it even shake, it would move. It would act as if it was one solid piece.
So you're looking at master engineers, master architect.
Oh yes.
Master craftsmen,
of their period, and up to today they would be masters.
And a magnificent religion.
Oh yes.
Religious philosophy of peace.
These were the founders of religious theosophy used today by Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They have not gone beyond it. They're still using the fundamentals that were established along the Nile and best expressed here in this temple. Yes.
In addition to the religious theology that was embodied here, there's just a sense of peace and tranquility that is absolutely overwhelming.
Of a god for whom this magnificent temple was named.
That is a relief of God Amun-Re, holding an ankh in his left hand. The ankh is the symbol of the key of life, and in his right hand he has the highest symbol of office, the was scepter. In front of him is Ramesses II, the pharaoh, giving him a gift of something to drink.
Now these are awesome obelisks.
Yes?
Which is a Greek name, is it not?
Yes, it means a needle-like pyramid. In fact, you notice on the top, shapes like a pyramid. And that used to be colored coated with silver and gold.
Really?
Yes, they call it electron.
Are these two related in any way as far as religion is concerned? Or?
Yes. That one is the column.
The one on the right?
Yes, the obelisk of Makari Hatshepsut.
Yes.
And this is of her son-in-law, Thutmose III.
The same Hatshepsut queen who we saw.
Right. That's she reigned at 1580 to 1450 something.
Where was this granite brought from?
Aswan, which is about 4.5 hours drive from here, south.
4.5 hours drive.
Yes, by automobile.
And there was no driving in those days.
No, well.
So they brought it up on barge.
It came up on the
Somehow
boats.
they got it out of the quarry.
Out the quarry.
Got it down to the river.
Down to the river.
Put it on a barge that was large enough. This is one piece.
That's
one
right.
solid
one
piece.
solid monolithic piece.
How much does it weigh, would you say?
Oh, I mean, a few thousand tons.
What does the shape of the obelisk represent?
It represents a tapered penis. Frankly, it goes back to the story of Isis, using the Greek name. Aset would be the Egyptian name. Put in erecting a symbol of her husband's penis, because her husband, Asar, or otherwise called Osiris, was murdered by his brother, Set-Typhon. It was also Aset's brother.
That's that story we saw on the wall.
Right.
With
And-
the hippopotamus.
Right. And when he was murdered and cut up into 14 pieces, she went and find the pieces symbolically around the world, but could not find one piece, the penis, because his brother had thrown that piece in the Nile, and the Nile catfish ate it. So she had them built or cut an obelisk to remind those who had persecuted and murdered him of his penis, so that whenever they go, they'll always have to see his penis.
I see.
You would notice that it's George Washington Memorial in Washington, D.C. is a copy of this.
So what are you saying to me?
That it's a symbol of his penis.
Not George's, but
George, the President of the United States, the obelisk is symbolic of the penis regardless of who got one. It has one meaning. Now why?
I wonder what George would say.
Well, you know why? Every member of the United States, original Congress, and members of the Cabinet of the United States, the first cabinet, was a Mason except one man, Benjamin Franklin, because he was a Quaker.
What does
And
that have to do with what we're talking about?
the symbols they used for setting up the United States was based upon the Masonic order, which they copied from here, the 22 tablets that were stolen from here by England. They used those tablets and take for instance...
And is the pyramid included in some,
yes.
the obelisk?
The pyramid and the money, like you said it.
And the obelisk?
The obelisk, the ever-seen eye, which they call some funny name for it. The pyramid, the sunburst, is symbolic of God Amun-Ra and Ra. The goddess Ma'at at the Supreme Court building with a scale, only that the scale with Ma'at is level. The scale in the United States up and down, not just this, but just this, not just this.
Okay.
And so on.
Chamber here that we are in. What are these two figures here, Dr. Ben?
Well, the figure on your left is Tutankhamun, and the figure on your right is his wife, the daughter of Akhenaten. She was the fifth daughter, Akhenaten, of Tutankhamun.
How can you tell this was King Tut?
Well, in this case, because I happen to know the question of the statue, although there is no cartouche for me to follow at this particular point, but at one time there was a cartouche on the body.
So even though he was a teenager, he had a wife?
Oh, yes. He was married to, Akhenaten married him to his daughter before he mounted the throne.
Just a quick word about features. Full lips, apparently wide nose.
It was
Was this an artistic concept, or is this an approximation of how the man looked?
The artist must have been running through this country, because that concept is going on a lot of statues.
Okie dokie. Now, what's this? I
This
see that
is the Holy of
walkway
Holies.
goes up,
You
so
notice
it
that
must be...
the flow starts to ramp up. And as soon as the flow starts to ramp up, you start to question yourself, I am going to the Holy of Holies.
This is a place that you don't believe in going into.
I do not go into holies. I pay the reverence as I would not go into a modern synagogue, a modern church, a modern mosque in the Holy of Holies. I show it the respect.
You wouldn't walk on the altar of certain churches.
No, sir.
This is the
No, sir. I don't have to pray like the people who it belong to, but I show them the respect.
What is this?
This is based upon a calendar. The ancient Egyptians, how they were able to put numbers. 2, 1, 2, 3.
3.
10, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24.
24.
24 again, 33. 32.
I see.
100, 200, 10, 20, 30. 230. 220.
Now, how is this used?
Well, it was used to add.
Like a calculator?
Oh, yes. This was used as a calculator. And it was generally based upon months or something. They did the addition. They had to deal with how much grain, how much tons of this and tons of that. And that was the mathematical way of doing numbers.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to put all of this together?
In my head? I guess a few years ago.
A few years?
Yeah, you don't.
A few decades?
You don't know when you're getting it, when it's coming into you.
Well, what do you say to somebody who's looking at this program that we're doing and their head begins to swim? What do you say to them about how they can hope to deal with this?
My advice would be, don't get perturbed. It's a process of education and it takes time.
It took time to build and it took time to understand.
It took more time to build it than it takes time to understand it. Now we are going to the temple of Thutmose III. Yeah, Ahu.
What?
The painting of Jesus.
Oh.
And Joseph and Mary. The Christians use this temple.
This faded figure here is supposed to be of Jesus?
Of Jesus with the wrong thing around his head, that thing.
So this was co-opted by...
This was made a Christian temple. Look at the other, and you're going to see more. Here. You see it? There.
Yes, I see it.
That's the statue of God, the triad of the temple. God Amun, Amun-Re, his son Khonsu, God Khonsu, his wife, goddess Nut, the holy triad, which the Christians copied and called the Trinity. You look at the top of the column, see some still color, and you see Jesus, Joseph, and Mary, and you see where they copied it from. They cut that up to make it look like a crucifix, the early Christians. Not only did they...
How do you know this?
Well, because we have the evidence of the paintings there.
I see.
We have the evidence of the cutting of the thing by... Here is the point itself. These were statues, as you see. They didn't even finish because they didn't finish cutting off the neck and head of the one to the right. And we have the experience of all the other temples that they occupied.
Since Dr. Ben has been coming here for the last 50 years, sometimes as many as 6 times a year, just about everybody knows it.
Dr. Ben, brother.
Hi, brother.
How are you, brother?
My brother.
How are you? How are you? Nice seeing you. How are you? Good?
Tamam. How are you? Good? أهلا. How are you?
Good. Good morning. Welcome.
Oh, I see you again.
Welcome to Upper Egypt.
Who was this lake built for?
For the priests.
And who built it? Under what reign or dynasty?
Oh, this lake was built during the 18th dynasty under the reign of Amenhotep III.
And what is the purpose of this lake?
So that the priests could clean themselves. The priests in every ritual have to take a bath. Anything that he does in the temple, and anytime he enters the temple, he must wash himself before going. Anytime he eats, he must wash himself before putting in food in a dirty body.
Was there such a thing as a priestess?
Yes, but they didn't come here. They had their own temples, and they did not deal with these worship temples.
Now on the left here, I see some steps over on the left side of this lake.
Yes, that's
where they step down to do their
the priests
bathing.
could come down and go up. Yes.
Let's ride north to see two temples. En route, there was some time to sort out and digest all that this man, Dr. Ben, had shown us. It took almost 2 hours to reach our first site, the temple at Abydos.
But I know she had to fall. I know it will happen.
Yes.
Hello. Go on your foot.
We don't need that, Al.
42 steps.
Yeah?
Yeah, you could count 42 risers. This was built originally by Pharaoh Seti I. It was extended by his son, Ramesses II. What you are seeing here, this section was built by Ramesses II, and then...
There's that name again.
Everywhere. You're going to see him everywhere. There is Ramesses showing you his father also and himself and the god Osiris.
This was just a place of worship for him.
It was more than that, because when we go outside in the back and up to the rear, it is where Osiris is supposed to have been buried.
Oh, really?
The god of resurrection. It is here that
the one who was cut up in pieces.
Yes, with the back of the temple of Seti I. All
right.
And sitting on the exit and egress and ingress temple of Osiris.
All right. Now, what happened to Osiris? And when you say egress, that means go out.
Yes.
That means he went out through this tunnel here.
Right.
What happened that led him to go out through that tunnel?
He was murdered for the second time and completed his stay in the world, as you know it, and went to the netherworld.
Well, let me take you back a bit. For those who may be confused when you say he was murdered a second time, what was the first murder?
He was hanged by his brother.
Yes.
His wife, goddess Aset, appealed to God Ra. God Ra gave him the power to bring him back. She and the god of death, Ampu, otherwise called Anubis. He came back, and the brother heard that he was back again. The brother came and killed him for the second time. This time cut him up into 14 pieces.
As depicted on that wall.
Right.
All right. And he somehow, he survived that.
Yes, his wife again, with Ampu, went, got him, reconstructed the body, but the one piece was missing, his penis, which had been thrown in the Nile River, and eaten by the Nile catfish.
Right. So with this missing member, what happened?
She again went to God, God Ra. Ra resurrected, gave him back his penis, resurrected his penis, and allowed him to make the virgin birth, immaculate conceived child, Horus, his son, Heru.
With who? Out of who?
With Aset, Isis.
All right.
Then he left and went back for good. Through that tunnel, into the mountain, to the next world, where he will remain and judge.
How far does this passageway lead?
Into the inner world, into the inner hills, into the inner mountain. No one knows where the end is.
Nobody knows, huh?
No one knows. Nobody have been there. People have tried to go, but they have not been successful in reaching the end of it. Many people have gone in there, but turned back. They keep going and going and went too far.
It's tough going. I can see that because you got mountains out there.
All right. It is believed that it is somewhere in the middle of the mountain. I don't know. I've been in about 20 feet and give up. I didn't plan to go in more than that anyhow.
Wow. Is it as close as inside the pyramid?
The feelings make you feel, because you understand that it's supposed to lead you to nowhere that you're going to find an end. Psychologically, in my case at least, you give up because you realize it's getting darker and darker, but it's providing electric light in there.
Well, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take your word for it, and I'm not going to go down. I'll just take your word for it, okay?
I appreciate that.
Me too.
In other words, you're coward like me.
But for our last temple site.
This is the temple, the worship temple of goddess Het Heru or goddess Hathor at Dendera.
Who built this temple and when?
This temple was built by the Africans quite a long time ago, however. On the foundation of the existing temple, the Greeks came and added a portion of a temple, and then the Romans came and finished it.
Oh.
It was dedicated to goddess Het Heru, otherwise called Hathor.
What dynasty originally built this?
Oh, this was started in the 25th dynasty. However, it was completed and made a total in the 30th and 31st dynasty, the last.
Oh, so this is towards the end?
This is the end.
Uh-huh.
On the top of the column, where the beam is sitting on,
yeah.
You see, that's best.
Who's depicted at the top there?
On the top relief, starting from left to right, is Cleopatra, Caesarean, goddess Hathor, and the king, and Horus.
I see. And on the next level down?
On the left level down again, the same. That's the same thing.
Well, wait a minute. Isn't that Hathor seated in the middle there?
Yes, but she's seated on the top with a different crown. And the second level is Isis. Look at the throne.
I see. Oh, you've got me faked out. And I notice all the faces on these huge, immense...
Is Hathor. Goddess Hathor. It is a possible one that you could have seen the face there. Possibly.
Just for the benefit of the camera, when the camera pans down, I just want viewers to see the enormity of these pillars.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes when these things are shown on video, without the human form to give you a sense of perspective, you don't realize how huge this is.
You're 50 foot.
This is 50 feet. Lord have mercy.
Of all the pharaohs, queens, gods, and goddesses we heard about, some names stood out.
Everywhere you go, you're going to see something about Ramesses. To me, Ramesses II was the greatest king in terms of action. He was a 19th dynasty king. He ruled for about 67 years. He lived till he was about 97, 98 years old. Had a number of wives and children. I wouldn't attempt, like many, to number them because I am not satisfied of any number that was left us. But Ramesses, because of the length of time and his activity as an engineer and so forth, an active man, he had more statues, more temples, more anything that he did, some of which people blame him or putting his name on other people's artifacts or whatever. And so you're going to see him everywhere. I was surprised.
But that seems to be the practice. I mean, as you took us up and down the Nile with these and looked at these temples, we began to see that there were almost every temple was improved or enlarged or expanded on by succeeding dynasties that followed.
Yes, almost every temple had a previous, the one that you see had a previous temple there upon which foundation it sits. And many times the old temple walls are still way beyond, it was much larger than the temple that you were in at that particular time.
And since Ramesses lived longer, he had more time.
He had more time to cover more ground.
So he put his personality on everything up and down the Nile.
And so why waste material to build a new wall when you could use the existing one?
There are a couple other pharaohs that we hear mentioned quite often. This Pharaoh Akhenaten.
Oh. Though Akhenaten lived one mini fraction of the time that Ramesses did, his impact on society, his impact on Judaism, Christianity, Islam. For example, this one man changed the religion or the worship, I prefer the term worship than religion per se, of the entire nation of Egypt. He left no doubt that the ancients believed in a common deity, a god. He changed it from the worship of the great god, Amun-Re-Ora, and with subordinate gods with different names, to the worship of one deity alone, by the name of Aten, A-T-E-N, using the same symbol, the disk of the sun, but adding thumbs, elongated thumbs to it. Thus, the beginning of monotheism. He died before Moses was born and preached monotheism. The same Akhenaten preached nonviolence. Long before anybody around today talking about nonviolence, he had spoken about it and lived it. He brought his cousin Semenkare to do the administrative work of the government. They had two kings, while he concentrated on peace with other neighboring states. To prove it, he decommissioned most of his officers, reduced the size of the Egyptian armed forces to the point where Egypt was almost defenseless against its enemies. He weakened Egypt. This man of the arts and everything like that was the name Amenhotep IV. Otherwise, he changed his name from Amenhotep to Akhenaten. Hatshepsut built her tomb, that's one of the objections they have with her, she got in trouble, in the Valley of the Kings.
Which is right over there.
Yes, but she was a queen who declared herself equally Pharaoh, Queen Pharaoh, and thought she had the right to bury in the Valley of the King because she served in the career of a king, and that she was born not of ordinary man, that she was born of an immaculate conception and virgin birth to god Amun and goddess Hathor.
So that was a controversial position to take.
Yes, but showing you that there was a concept of the virgin birth and immaculate conception long before Mary and Jesus and so forth. That virgin birth thing is nothing new.
Then it was back to Cairo. In nearby Giza, literally a stone's throw away from those three awesome pyramids, stands the world-renowned Great Sphinx.
The Sphinx is supposedly the statue of the person who is buried in the second period, Khafra. But that is just one view. It is, however, a remaining part of the quarry that gave to the pyramids the stones that you saw cut there.
Oh, it's the leftovers.
The leftover. And out of that, the Sphinx has cut. It is the head of a pharaoh, or that pharaoh, the body of a lion.
Dr. Ben has often said that when Napoleon Bonaparte invaded Egypt and came upon the Sphinx, he ordered that its head be blown off. 21 rounds of cannon fire hit the Sphinx, defacing it. This, it's been said, is the origin of the 21-gun salute. There are many views on why Napoleon found the head of the Sphinx offensive. What do you think? Actually, the Sphinx is part of a complex of sites here, all having to do with the burial of the pharaoh. Alongside the Sphinx, you can see a temple. It's called a valley temple. There it is coming up on the lower left. This is where the funeral rites began. Inside that temple, Dr. Ben showed us columns which he said were made of the same granite once encasing the pyramids.
And this is what the whole face of all three pyramids was like.
This is all, but at the bottom. But to me, the feat is this. You fly from here to Aswan at least 1 hour, generally 1 hour and 15 minutes. Figure that they're coming down by river, no motor, to bring all this material here. They have to quarry it in Aswan and then bring it here. And they didn't finish there. They bring it, put it in place and finish it. People think that they do all the carving and everything at a place and bring it up, put it up. No, they put up the stone and did the carving after that. The pharaoh died, okay? He dies. They have to take him and wash him and do the rituals. Then the opening of the mouth ceremony, right? But they don't perform the rest of the performance. They must ritualize him in the Valley Temple.
The body of the pharaoh was taken up this causeway to the mortuary temple, where the mummification took place. Vital organs were removed and placed in special jars. So was the blood. A tedious process would preserve the corpse indefinitely if undisturbed. Then the pharaoh's mummy, with the jars and valuables, was interred deep inside the pyramid. How does one digest all the dimensions of this 4,000-year civilization that Dr. Ben has outlined for us? The answer is simple: you can't. That would require the kind of long study that Dr. Ben himself has engaged in. But there are some basic understandings for us all that can be useful to us in these times, as you will see and hear in our next and last edition. Visit over a dozen sites